Hey, what's up? It's Demilich. Well, as you probably know, a balance patch for our favorite game was released, and today I want to talk a bit about that patch, but mostly about what this game is still missing and what needs to change for the better. Um, the patch definitely improved a lot of things, no doubt about that, but after spending more time in the game, I realized that unfortunately it's still not enough. The game needs bigger changes that would affect a much wider variety of units overall. Since this is the first patch and more are definitely coming. I want to share my thoughts on the topic in more detail and maybe add a few suggestions of my own. So, let's go through the changes step by step, faction by faction, and talk about what still needs to be improved. The first on the list is the Chaos. This faction is actually in a pretty good spot, and honestly, I think it has always been fairly well balanced. It has answers to basically every type of unit in the game. Chaos also has one of the biggest varieties of units types, which allows for a lot of different and flexible builds. As for the overall changes in the patch, they were pretty solid. We saw the standard artillery and grenade nerfs that affect almost every faction, um, and Chaos was no exception. There were also some adjustments to melee units since the developers are clearly trying to rehabilitate melee gameplay, and we will probably see more of that in the with other factions as well. But like I said early, the faction was already well balanced and stayed that way after the patch. The nerfs didn't make any units unplayable. Um, so yeah, Chaos is still strong, good, competitive, and very well balanced overall. The Dark Elder received some really nice and smooth changes. They are no longer overwhelming on the tier 1, and their damage against commanders has been reduced. Before it was too risky to even bring in your hero out against them. At the same time, though, they now have much stronger anti-vehicle options. So if you fail to pressure your opponent early on in a tier 1, enemy vehicles aren't nearly as terrifying as they used to be. And honestly, I think these are genuinely good changes because, in my opinion, developers should focus heavily on the experience of newer players. First impressions are usually the most honest and accurate ones. For example, if new player tries this faction and feels like the units are too fragile or that the faction lacks proper anti-vehicle tools going into tier 2, then they're probably right, and that kind of feedback should be taken seriously. Or take Necrons as another example. If new players feels like the faction is too slow and that they can't really do anything because everyone just kites and outmaneuvers them, then that's also a real issue. Uh, Overall, I think the Dark Eldar got exactly the changes they needed, and honestly, they probably don't need any major adjustments anymore. Um, so yeah. Next, the regular Eldar now have a couple of well-deserved nerfs, and those changes were definitely needed. But I'd say the two most problematic units are still untouched. First, the Dark Reapers. they still deal massive damage to infantry while also having incredible mobility. In skilled hands, they can kite and damage Necron warriors without taking any return fire at all. The only thing that somewhat helps is maps with narrow choke points, but on the open maps, Necrons basically have no chance against them. In my opinion, their anti-infantry damage needs to be toned down. The second unit is the Brightlands Great Platform, which is essentially a tier 3 version of the Pathfinder team. It still reduces armor by 75%, and that number is absolutely insane. It really shouldn't be that high. Overall, the patch did include some good changes that improved the faction balance, but unfortunately, these two major issues were left untouched, and because of that, Eldar still feel unbalanced. Yeah. So next, Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard was adjusted in a way that weakens its anti-infantry potential. The goal was clearly to prevent players from creating an overly efficient army with very little investment into specialization. The same applies to the Commissar and priced buffs. At the same time, commanders became stronger overall because the patch reduces damage against commanders across the board. Uh, there were also requirement reshuffles, buffs to the Psyker, and improvements to heavy weapon teams. Because of all these changes combined, the faction feels much more balanced now and arguably even a bit stronger overall. The only thing I really didn't see addressed was the Marauder Bomber. Uh, its main problem seems to be the very high cost combined with weak weapon damage. Uh, the active abilities themselves actually seem fine, but the aircraft as a whole, unfortunately, not really viable right now, and that definitely should be changed. Um, Another thing that might still need some tweaking is the command squad's Imperial knockback. It's probably one of the most frustrating passive abilities in the game because constantly interrupts engagements and makes it difficult to actually do anything. It can delay enemy player for several minutes while giving the Imperial Guard player extra time to scale and take up safely. Necrons receive some economic rework, thermoplasma generator, a lower cost, and for economy upgrades. Overall, this is something that probably should have been done a long time ago. However, increased cost of phase shift is already a noticeable change, and honestly, it feels a bit unpleasant. Um, there's still no changes to the Chronometron artifact. It performs terribly. It's a very risky pick, and the last three artifacts are simply too expensive for anyone to ever really want to take them. Uh, I feel like the most expensive one should cost around 250 power just to make them even slightly appealing. Um, there are still no changes for the unit like attack scarab. They are completely useless right now. Everything they can do, other units do 10 times more efficiently. Their cost is just way too high. Um, they don't work as a scouts. They don't function as a anti-air, and they don't perform well in any role. They require way too much micro and don't pose a threat to anything at all. I would like to see them change into proper scouts with, for example, a 40 unit vision range. Then maybe they would actually have some value in the army. But even then, their cost is still very high, and you'd have to invest a lot of resources into them. Honestly, right now, it makes no difference whether they exist in your army or not. Nothing really changes. um, I just hope they finally find a proper place in the army. There are also issues that are mostly known only to Necron players. In the Aftermatch, there are still maps that are either 50-50 for Necrons or actually unfavorable for them. Some maps give an economic advantage to other factions like Meeting of Minds or Quest Room, while others, due to close base positioning, allows opponents to mass huge infantry armies and simply end the game early, such as Quarter Reaches or Shrine of Exelion. Um, Adding maps like Bloody Hell and Fraser Demise could help balance the aftermatch map pool a bit more. Necrons still suffer from extremely long infantry production times. The situation is extreme that it can literally reach the point where two enemy squad appear in your base while you only have one of your own, and you are forced to somehow deal with it. That's not normal. It shouldn't work like that. And it's not something that gets balanced out by their so-called free units. Um, Necron warriors are not better than basic infantry units from other factions. In fact, they're often worse. They don't have the same attack range and they are slower, which makes them significantly less effective in early engagements. Uh, Unlike the Eldar, orcs actually received nerfs in the areas where they really need the most. The only remaining question is whether it's enough or if further reduction are still required. But reduction in both health and damage against low buildings is exactly what was needed. That's really the core of the faction imbalance. It feels like the developers did the best job here compared to all the other factions changes. I don't really see any other problematic units that would require an immediate fix right now. Maybe the only thing, as I see it, is further reduction in the damage against low buildings, but overall, at the moment, the changes seems sufficient. Next, Sister of the Battle. Sister of the Battle, some of the biggest receive some of the biggest overall buffs compared to all other factions. They start at the game with 20 phase, which means they can already heal early on using a missionary. There are also an additional armor and damage upgrade available in the next year with very strong overall stats. On top of that, they now deal more damage with their standard weapons as well. The only real nerf they received is reduction to the Confessor active abilities, but even that hasn't stopped him from being a commonly picked unit. The main point I wanted to make is that this faction has gained massive anti-infantry power, but in my opinion, their real strength was always in their anti-vehicle and anti-building capabilities, and those are still fully intact. Krug grenades hasn't been touched at all, and even without them, two Celestian squad can burn down a generator in seconds, and there is basically nothing you can do to stop them. I expect a serious nerf in that area, unlike Dark Eldar, I think the developers didn't fully account for the insane combination of tools they have, especially crack grenades and Celestian squads. I really hope something is done about that. Um, okay, next. Space Marines received some requirement reshuffling that actually benefits them, allowing for early plays, for example, faster access to weapon upgrades and Rhino transport. There are also attempts to adjust damage against high infantry, which mainly includes orcs and Eldar. Um, and honestly, the faction overall only got stronger. However, some of the nerfs that were really needed didn't happen. This especially applies to units like scouts, which are extremely effective at taking map control early, and fighting workers. They're just an annoying units in the general, and they force you into the same opening every single game. For example, if I try to go a different road, I say I don't build two builders and Necron warriors early on against a good player, that basically game over for me. They will wipe out my workers, set my economy back several means, decap everything, and the game is effectively lost for that point. Um, and this kind of issue exists across multiple factions as well, where you are forced into the exact same opening or you just lose. It's not only Necrons versus Space Marines problem. There are similar cases in other matchups too, so uh, I hope it will be fixed in the next patches. And finally, my favorite faction Tau received nerfs to Westpits and the Pathfinder team. I have I had been waiting for this for a very long time, so thankfully it finally happened. There is also some bad news for Necrons. Fire Warriors damage against workers has been increased. It hurts, but overall it still feels more or less acceptable. However, in my opinion, Devilfishes and the stealth team still need nerfs. The core issue with the faction is that they have access to too much vision in the tier 2. They can still shoot across half the map without taking risks or even getting close to the enemy. I believe their vision range should be reduced to around 40. Right now, they have an excessive number of long vision units, and Devilfishes in particular are very cheap, provide vision, have invisibility, deal sufficient damage against all target types, and can also transport units inside them. Um, this unit definitely needs a rework along with the stealth teams. The problem with them is that a single active ability can disable multiple vehicles at once and then allow them to be destroyed from stealth. Just one click and you don't even see who disabled you. Not to mention they can easily disengage thanks to having two jumps. In my opinion, only tier 4 relic units should have vision up to 60. For example, Great Narlock can have it. Everything else should be capped at around 40. Tau simply have too many long vision tools, and they compensate for it by sheer quantity. So don't worry about that. uh, and I think that's all for today. I've gone through all the issues I know about, and I hope my thoughts will reach the developers and that some of these things will get addressed in the future updates. So yeah, uh, that's it for today. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and like. I will try to keep making patch reviews in the future. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.